Welcome back for another episode of Salt
Sauna.
Soul.
So today we are at the lovely Morton Arboretum,
Yes.
and I will kind of pan around. We're on the east side of
Yeah.
things. So ridiculous. But we wanted to spend some time out in nature because today's topic is
Movement.
woohoo.
Yes.
So we wanted to come to the Arboretum, be outside. The weather is so lovely. The birds are singing. The grass is growing. Spring is here.
And soon summer because it's feeling like it's bypass spring and jumping straight into summer some of these days as well. So
It does do that. It
yeah.
does have a tendency to do that here in
Uh,
Illinois. So, what shall we talk about, Mr. Evans?
okay. So when we think about movement, I think one of the things that we was thinking about as it overall wellness and sauna about movement and heat, right? And one, the benefit of, increasing your mobility when you apply some heat as part of the process and sandwich those two modalities together. So,
Okay. All right. We found a bench.
yes. All right.
All right. So, mobility, using your sauna session as part of your movement treatment. Oh, there's a cardinal.
Like, ooh, squirrel.
Squirrel. Squirrel. Wait a minute. Okay. Aside. Last time I was here, I did like a really, really long walk, and it was still winter. And so
Mm-hmm.
there was a bunch of squirrels digging, and they had dug holes like all over the place. I guess they were trying to find where they had buried their little nuts and whatnot earlier in the fall, because there was holes all over the trail, just
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. And the squirrels were fat too. I was surprised they were out, but anyway, that was a great aside.
Okay.
Movement.
What was the point?
Because you said squirrel.
Okay, focus. All right. So,
Movement.
you supposed to have, I handed the ball over to you. What you want to say about
Oh,
movement?
you did?
Because I explained what we saw today.
Sauna, hot.
We done that side of hot. Okay. I'm sorry, guys.
We're outside.
Outside. All right.
Outside smells good. Okay, that was for my cousin. Anyway, movement within the sauna.
Mm-hmm.
I think, okay, so let's kind of give a little bit of background first. So, you, sir, are a certified personal trainer, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so I am not a personal trainer. I will give you all that caveat, but he is. And so he's going to talk about movement from a, more technical perspective. And I'll just talk about what I do in the sauna. How about that? You want to do that?
Deal.
Okay.
Deal.
So I'll start because mine is not medical in any kind of shape, way, or form. But when I think about being in the sauna, so there's technically we have access to three different sizes. One which is like a personal one. Um, we both fit in there. At one
Mm.
point, we did. So the bench is big enough for at least two people to sit on. But it's really made for one. Can't lie down in it. Then we have the ones at the studio that three people could sit
Mm-hmm.
in. And so for if you're like under like 5'5", 5'6", you can easily lie down on the bench. And then we have the larger one that four people can fit in. So if you're taller, like, hitting that 5'9", 6 foot range, you could lie down in that one easily. So most of the time, I tend to do a lot of lying down when I'm in the sauna because I just like to relax. But there are the rare occasions that if I do it in the morning, if I have like a morning session, I've done squats. I did try yoga in the sauna once, and then I tried a little Tabata workout. It was on YouTube, and I tried it. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Um, but general gentle stretching is something that I do often do. Some facial yoga easily done in the smaller one, and little arm workouts. And I think I will say I do find it easier to do workouts in the sauna. Not high intensity workouts, but more of like just gentle stretching and whatnot. Especially if I've like just woken up and I'm in there, and after it starts to get warm, it's easy for me to start stretching. So, Mr. Personal Trainer, why is that?
Why is
Why is it easier?
it's easier? Think about anything that gets cold is stiff or brittle,
Okay.
right? And things that are warm are more plastic and have more elasticity to it,
Okay.
right? And so what the sauna does is I think most people don't realize is that with how the muscle is made, it's just fibers. They like a web and tight in between, right? All these fibers to bind together to create your muscle. And so what's happening with heat is that those connections, those fibers are being able to like move and stretch and move with more ease than when it's a cold muscle, right? And so if you're thinking about even with your general like joints and you're like, oh my God, I'm stiff. But, in any workout class you're taking it, quote unquote, they do the warm up. And the whole point of that is to create some kinetic energy, right? Through movement so that you can first get that heat going, get the blood circulating, right? Raising your heart rate and getting more blood circulating through the body, which in turn also oxygenizes the body, and particularly like your muscles and so forth. And so as you taking in more oxygen, you also getting that and it's getting into your bloodstream more and also then feeding into your muscles, which in turn going to give you increasing mobility and energy and general output with that being said. So like the sauna, why it works better, the sauna is a trigger, right? Where you don't necessarily relying on kinetic energy in order to get that, just the overall heat is happening that you're sitting in is raising your heart rate, right? Which you also in turn, if you start doing some movement, now you're pushing a larger volume of blood. So you're oxygenizing the body, you know what I'm saying? And particularly also with that heat is also triggering for you to breathe in, try to take in more oxygen, right? Because the air itself is getting thicker and more difficult to breathe. So you actually pulling in more oxygen too, just in general being in an environment that is overall hotter than your room temperature air, right? And so you're getting more oxygen into the body as well as starting to get those muscle fibers starting to like get that heat and get that elasticity and stretching out. Think about it like this. Have you ever had gum that you chewed for a while, right? And then you tried it in your mouth and then you drunk something cold or put an ice cube in your mouth, but you still have the gum in it. What
Yeah.
happens to the gum?
It gets
The
hot.
gum just get hard and gets
Yeah.
stiff, right?
It's
And
gross.
and oftentimes what people are doing is, especially when they talk about doing stretching, often static stretching, is that they moving stiff muscles, cold muscles, right? And you trying to elongate. It's it's difficult. It's also increased your overall risk factors for tearing, a pull, a strain of some sort when you're doing that. And so warming up the body in some capacity, whether you're using kinetic energy from your movement, doing dynamic movements or whatever, or hopping around, or you're allowing the sauna itself to do it. I like the sauna because it is one, you're letting the unit, You letting the device that you're sitting in create that energy. And so for some people who are more prone to injury, who have suffered some injury and still maybe on the mend, whether you strained and pulled or hurt something. Like I hurt my hand 3 weeks ago, and I'm still on the mend for that. And so instead of me flexing and doing things where I'm actually taking that cold limb or that cold part of my body and forcing it to move, I'm in an environment that's warm, and so now I'm moving with a lubricated joints and muscles and so forth. So that's why it's easier. Some of the reasons why it's easier, and some of the things that are happening with being in the sauna to help with your overall movement. Now, then from there, it's also then goes into the different techniques that you use in order to further techniques in terms of movement patterns. I want to be very clear on that. The movement patterns to get those stretches, right? And articulate in the right specific areas that you're trying to, get more elasticity in or elongation. And then also breathing. Breathing becomes super, super, super important. If you've taken any yoga class, if you've done Pilates before, heck, if you have done any
Martial arts.
sports or, what I'm saying, even if you're in semi pro, you realize that breathing is super, super important, right? Even hell, even if you've done things such as like archery or dealing with firearms, the way you relax and then exhale when you're about to do the action and exertion. So breathing becomes a super, super key component when you're trying to tie it into movement, and then particularly with stretching, because what it does is allow the brain to work with the body to get it to relax and not fight itself and then doing things choppy and sporadic. And so from that part, the body just release into the stretch and you find yourself going deeper and deeper and deeper. So those are just some reasons, some ways. So which is there something you want to add? Because I could be talking about this
I
like
know, I know.
I
I
can talk
want.
about this for a whole hour. Like move over. I got this. But
Yes, you do. But okay, so but you were
mm-hmm,
mentioning breathing, and I think it would be a good tie to
mm-hmm,
kind of talk about salt a little bit. So salt sauna in the guise of why it's beneficial for athletes and general populations
mm,
respiratory system
mm-hmm.
as they're doing this movement within the space. So why, how, talk a little bit about that.
Okay, just gonna tee me up.
I
Okay,
Yeah, I'm interviewing you, sir.
I see. I see. Well, for let's take with the athletes,
Okay.
right? What salt is doing, how we use with the halo generator, or if you go into a salt cave, is dealing with a halo generator, right? Which is that using medical grade salt, grinded up very fine, like so that the halo generator can pump it out as an aerosol mist inside the sauna cabin itself. That's how we have it at our facility. Now, what's happening, right? Because we're familiar with saline solution. I always say that so people have a reference point. And how saline solution, which is nothing but salt water, normally use a neti pot or some other pump based system that you can squeeze or whatever to push the salt solution inside your nasal cavity. It breaks down mucus. Salt, it actually helps break down and either loosen or dissolve mucus so you can then flush it out. Now, when you do it with the halo generator, one is very gentle, right? It's much gentler than using the neti pot or any other type of, plastic squeeze pump kind of system to force that in. So you just breathe it in naturally. Right? Also, those applicators, if you're not clean well, and there's some bacteria because you often use it's not a neti pot and all those other devices are not a one-time use. But if you don't clean it thoroughly and let it dry, any bacteria, any type of germs or whatever that's on that applicator What you also run the risk of with the neti pot and the like is that you can push that bacteria or push those germs directly into your nasal cavity, which is very close to your brain. And in some rare cases, it has caused other health issues and harm. And that's only due to not the salt water, the saline solution and salt, it's only due to the cleanliness and the maintenance and care of the actual neti pot or whatever is the delivery system for that salt.
So because we're not doing it that way, we're
Yes.
doing it the dry salt aerosol.
Yes. Eliminates
It
all what I
eliminates.
just said.
Okay, so let's stay with what
Okay.
we're talking about.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
when we're thinking about movement
Mm-hmm.
and we're thinking about breath
Mm-hmm.
and using the salt treatments, how does it benefit both athletes and general population?
How it benefits both is because oxygen, I've talked about earlier when you warmed about oxidizing the body, right? Um, with clear airways, right, and passages, right, and I'm talking about from your nasal cavity, your esophagus, and your lungs, the clearer that they are, the more oxygen and more efficient with the oxygen you intake, which in turn, when you start adding it with movement, right, whether you're trying to do it for your general, like working out, or just stretching to increase your overall, movement,
Mobility.
mobility.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was looking for the word, I couldn't grab it. For your own mobility, right? Oxygen, how well you oxidize the body, it it can really improve in your overall performance, right? So that's why if you ever watched any football game, and sometimes in basketball games, you see a player that made a play or whatever, cut to the sidelines and they got an oxygen mask on, trying to replenish those
I just
O2 levels
I know.
from that level of exertion.
You remember that one? Was it the Pittsburgh Steeler guy, the linebacker?
Oh, yeah. A while back, yeah, and he,
Yes,
ran for that touchdown, and
he was like, "I'm tired, boss."
he told Mike Tomlin, like, I'm exhausted, I'm tired. And they had him on the sidelines with the oxygen tank trying to breathe in. And so
Oh
what
my
it
gosh, I gotta find that clip. That was
the more
best.
efficient, and most athletes are very efficient
Yes.
with the oxygen intake, right? Because also you're dealing with your O2 levels, your oxygen levels, then you also have your carbon monoxide, that happens with the body. And then you have your nitric oxide, which is another byproduct of the combination when you're dealing with your respiratory system. And so, not to get too deep into the weeds of that type of science, but why is it beneficial? Because of clearer airway and passages, from your lungs, using your bronchioles and so forth, in order to get that right. Because once the air come in, the bronchial system actually take that, and then, if I'm saying this correctly, I believe I am, and feed the body, and in turn oxidizing the blood, in turn getting a boost of energy. For a fact, what is interesting?
What?
Like when Lance Armstrong, what they was doing was they were replenishing the blood, right? And that's part of it was part of the cheating that they was doing infusions, right? To having fresh blood and high quality blood or whatever, so they can increase and improve his performance, him and his team. And so that was part of the scandal. And so,
but is that really? I mean,
you reduce getting tired.
Was it his blood though?
I don't quite know fully. I can't remember so long if it was necessarily his blood per se. Probably so, because you can also store it in advance.
That's what I'm saying. Like if he takes his own blood,
but if you cycling out, right?
That's called
so you don't
technology.
But if nobody else doing it, it's cheap.
Technology.
He's so ridiculous. And so
I don't know if that should really technically be cheating though.
I don't know how. I gotta revisit the scandal, but I know it was something about
somebody out there knows what happened with the Lance Armstrong
and recycling of blood and so forth. And so the point I'm trying to make is that if you want to be better for the average person, like, oh my God, I'm a golfer, or I play, saying tennis, or you may do pickup ball or things of that nature. As a semi or junior athlete or whatever, it can improve your overall performance, right? Because right? You're able to breathe better, get more oxygen into the body, which in turn actually going to energize the body. That's really what's happening. Oxygen helps energize the body, alerts get the mind alert and be able to perform. Now, too much of it can get you kind of like a little high and loopy with too much oxygen into your body, right?
Well, sit in the oxygen chamber.
You know what I'm saying? Where you
I
can
don't know if I need to be any more loopy.
get a little loopy.
I'm already a little
But
loopy.
in general, for the average person, because we're not actually forcing oxygen to the body. What you're saying is that, hey, why is it beneficial? Is that we're keeping the airways nice and clear. If you don't have issues of inflammation and mucus in your respiratory system, if you are getting that out, so then you can maximize the volume of oxygen you can actually intake in your body, as well as just keeping good lung and respiratory health, right? Because we always breathing in different pollutants. We out here in nature,
This is true. And pollen.
and it's a pollutant,
I am looking. I am
you
looking
know,
at all of the dandelions that
right?
have already disseminated, and the ones that are still.
And so we most likely probably after this go do a salt
Oh,
treatment, because
you know
as you
I
can
am.
smell already, you can hear in my voice, my nose is already starting to get a little, saying, stuff
Yeah,
up, and it's just because of the elements, right?
yeah.
These are pollutants, right? Depends on the body,
They're
depends on
so
the
pretty.
person.
They're pretty.
Amazing, right? And I'm still in nature and it's fresh air, but how is it reacting to my body? You know what I'm saying? The pollen and whatnot. And so salt will help me breathe better once we're done with this episode. It would definitely.
Yeah.
Another reason why is that um, not only good respiratory health, overall good energy, it also helps with muscle endurance.
Oh,
You
do
can do
tell.
activities much longer. And um, how it works for, obviously, for athletes, whatever sport or activity that you're doing, right?
Mhm.
Some of it is that, yeah, they say 48 minutes for a basketball game. We all know between the timeouts, the commercial breaks, or whatever, that basketball game is going 2.5 hours plus, right? A person must be able to perform a high level at that with that basketball game, to do their sport, to be the best or whatever, and stay focused. And so your endurance is a really, really important key. Now, for the average person, that endurance may look like that you having a high demanding job that require for you to work long hours and things of that nature, where you have to stay focused and alert. Sometimes it's physical if you're doing a blue collar job, and sometimes it's sitting in front of a computer for long, long stretches, doing some all nighters and things of that nature. Your endurance and being able to stay focused and alert is key. And over time, with good respiratory health, right? You're taking in more oxygen, and then you couple that with, routinely at least 3 times a week of doing some physical activity and some, decent like diet, right? Healthy, nutritious diet. You'll be surprised that those output and those demands for work or family, you'll be able to meet the moments, you know what I'm saying, that when those situations arrive. And so those are just some ways. There's tons of different reasons why and how, and so it's beneficial using salt. But good, clean respiratory health, just to recap, helps with your oxygen intake, which in turn helps you with your energy and muscle endurance, right? For any performance based things that you're doing, right? Um, yeah, it could be doing if you're doing a ton of housework, right? And if you don't want to be someone that I started and after an hour, I'm just tired and gassed out between chasing these kids and then doing laundry, then running up and down these stairs and things of that nature. And you're like, wow, okay, I'm breathing heavy, you know? Well, make sure
And
you're
there's pollutants in your home too.
totally, totally,
Cleaning products,
and alike.
candles,
So those are just some of the reasons
fireplaces,
why salt and a
gas
salt
stoves.
treatment really help is because of overall the oxygen level, and in turn allowing you to get the CO2 levels out of, out the body as well. And so once we take oxygen, we pushing out carbon monoxide, and so we don't want to hold that into our body because it is toxic to the body. And so the more efficient you are in getting oxygen in and CO2 out, you know, the more efficient, the better and healthier your body is. So
Awesome. I think that's a good place to pause.
sounds good. Cool.
All right.
All right.
So if you have any questions around
Yes.
movement,
Yes.
moving in the sauna,
Yes.
adding salt therapy to your sauna,
Yes. You
comment
know.
below.
Yes. Like
Uh,
how to stretch.
yeah,
How to add breathing techniques within your stretching.
yeah. I think
Right.
we should probably do an episode kind of like showing some stretching and
Yeah.
stuff. You want to do
And then
that?
how to get some of working from head to toe, right? And understanding small muscle groups need to be stretched or elongated just as well as the bigger overall muscle groups. And then I may have to define what is big and small muscle groups.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So that's longer. I like it, as you can see, I could talk about this thing for hours. But yeah, we maybe next episode or two.
We'll do a couple stretching,
Yeah, give some people
some
ideas of
stretching
how.
series. We could do it in both saunas. We'll do one in one. Like,
Yeah,
what do you do in a smaller sauna versus a larger
yeah,
sauna? Yeah,
yeah.
we could do that.
So
Okay. All right.
sound
So
like a
next
plan.
time, stretching. So some more movement, guys. And get outside, get some
Yes,
fresh
we about to
air.
enjoy the rest of
Yes.
this wonderful arboretum. So
Oh my goodness. This is a
see some more
gorgeous
nature.
place. Yes. All right.
All right.
Until next time, like and subscribe, comment,
Yes.
tell us what you guys want to hear next, and happy spring.
All right. Next time on Salt
Sauna.
Soul.